Hello, everybody, and welcome to Responsible AI in Action with the Responsible AI Institute, where we are speaking with some of the leading experts in responsible AI. I'm very excited. Today we have Al-Dhubaib joining us. Cal, thank you so much for being
Thanks
on the
so much
show.
for having me, Patrick. Good to be here.
I'm really excited to get the opportunity to chat with you today. Of course, you've been a member of the Responsible AI Institute for some time now, originally through your company Pandata, which was recently acquired by Further. You now work as head of AI and data science at Further, which I'm very excited to hear more about. And I'm wondering if we could start there. For our audience, I'm wondering if you could describe what exactly does someone do as head of AI and data
That is
science?
a great question, and one that I think everyone with this title is figuring out as we go. But for most of the last 8 years, I ran Pandata, which I had founded, and we were a small but mighty team of around 8. And it's just so exciting to now be a part of a bigger organization with a little over 180 team members, and really had the opportunity for us to be the foundation of a growing data science practice. And as many know, data science has been evolving rapidly, especially with the advent of generative AI. And so I spend a good deal of my time actually trying to get ahead of new trends and thinking about how do we deliver services that add value and do so safely and reliably when we're working with our clients to help design and build these machine learning solutions, some of which also build upon or incorporate elements of responsible AI. And along those lines, one of the most exciting services that we're getting ready to launch at Further is an AI auditing practice. So I spend a good deal of time trying to figure out what does the skill set look like for that? How do we find the right team members? How do you even invent roles when there aren't necessarily broad standards or skill sets or certifications that are widely accepted just yet? So that's how I spend a lot of my time, in addition to your standard bread and butter of overseeing talent and overseeing the general direction of these data science and machine learning driven projects.
You make a really good point, Cal, about how it's really this process that we're all figuring out together. AI is continuously changing, rapidly evolving, and I know for myself, sometimes it's tough to keep up with everything happening. And I guess to go back with what you were saying, like in your role at Further, for someone in a position like yours, where is that starting point? Where can maybe others who are tuning into this episode figure out, okay, I'm working in this AI space. Like, what's the first thing I need to do to approach this role or this job?
It's a great question, and you almost have to develop this sense of being able to move to where the puck is going. And I'll give you an example of that. Over the last 12 months, we had an uptick of clients who we worked with at Pandata, and our MO was building machine learning solutions in heavily regulated environments, so healthcare, energy, defense, financial services, places where we're dealing with sensitive data. There's a high cost of making mistakes. And all of a sudden, with the, I don't know necessarily hype, but like just pressure to come up with an AI strategy, we had a lot of clients stop and say, hey, how do we figure out what's the right thing to build? How do we think about policy and guardrails? And very quickly, we found ourselves creating services around AI strategy. And it happened once, then twice, and 3 times, and then it started to become a pattern. So it made perfect sense to build a service around it. Now comes the practice building part. If we're going to consistently deliver these AI strategy services, that workshops and education and prioritization, we're moving away from this world of data science and entering somewhat the world of management consulting. But there's this unique skill set, AI strategy. And we started creating these jobs, AI strategists. Pleased to announce that we just hired our first 2 AI strategists Further, but it's the birth of this type of job description. And the most interesting thing here is very few individuals would have had the role of AI strategy for any length of time prior to the last couple of years. So we started to look for folks who had data science backgrounds, who got the math, who got the stats, who had some experience with responsible AI frameworks, but also came from backgrounds where they either touched product or management consulting or venture building. And we started to see that even though these weren't traditional job descriptions, these individuals had the building blocks. And so we got to invent the role for that and recruit some really cool individuals to that role. But that's been our approach and our mindset. And on the AI auditing front, we're starting to look towards things like IAPP. They have their newly launched AI governance certificate and, looking closely to standards like NIST's AI risk management framework and looking for early opportunities where you can get that gold star of this individual understands this content that can be accepted by other organizations. And we're starting to equip our team with these certificates. And so that's how we go from finding the individuals who have the building blocks that we can work with and then building up that expertise in-house.
Yeah, you make a really good point that it's really a matter of laying this foundation, creating these building blocks, as you were mentioning, and building the team that you're working with. And it's what I really appreciate about the work that you've done, Cal, is that you've really done this incredible job of emphasizing the importance of building responsible frameworks when you're strategizing how AI is going to be used and how it's going to be implemented within organizations. Of course, Routers and many other publications this week came out with this article about how former employees of
That's right.
OpenAI and Google's DeepMind are whistleblowing the risks of AI. They're seeing a lot of these challenges and problems that they're really seeing firsthand. They are saying that the financial motives of AI companies are starting to hinder with regards to effective oversight. They're warning of the risks of unregulated AI, ranging from the spread of misinformation to the loss of independent AI systems and the deepening of existing inequalities. And this open letter has urged AI firms to facilitate a process for current and former employees to raise risk related
Sure.
concerns and to not enforce these confidentiality agreements that prohibit this kind of inward criticism of the AI that these companies are working on. So I would love to get your thoughts on this, Cal, and your thoughts on this article. How do we balance risk with innovation, understanding that the risks are quite high? And how do we create systems that can keep companies accountable?
So there's a lot to unpack there, but I'll start with saying that I'm not here to talk about existential risk. I think that there's a small faction of folks raising alarm bells about the fact that we're going to run out of jobs. The AI is going to become smarter than us. And that may be a concern decades from now, but short term, we have some more pressing problems to deal with. So I want to focus on those for now. And let's, acknowledge the fact that regulation isn't bad. We have this in a lot of other industries. Seatbelts are regulated, financial institutes are regulated, medical devices are regulated, and the net result is it's good business outcomes for consumers. And regulation, when implemented effectively, has a shared set of standards that allow us to go through routine safety checks that ensure that outcomes are in the favor of consumers. I'm a big fan of saying that boring AI is the best flavor of AI. So when we can reduce it down to a standard checklist that we all agree to, and it's like, yep, yep, yep. Now it's safe for use. That's good news for everyone. The problem with AI is a lot of these projects suffer from unintended consequences. And it's a function of two things. And this is kind of our measuring stick that we use with clients. One is the complexity of data. So spreadsheets, relatively straightforward, tables, even at scale, then documents, then images, then audio and video. And as your data gets more complex, it gets harder to query it. It's harder to write rules to inspect. And then on the flip side, you've got the complexity of goals. So if you're counting how much of something is there, you can always audit it. If you're categorizing, you can have a human check it. And if you get to more advanced things like categorizing or selecting from 100 million SKUs on Amazon, what are the right 10 for Patrick, or even synthesizing a response with generative AI, it gets increasingly subjective as to what correct is, even if there's some degree of correctness. So you have these two things. It's harder to write rules to inspect your data, and it's harder to define what correct and incorrect looks like. And the intersection of goal complexity and data complexity, it results in these areas where it's really hard to catch what's going wrong. In many cases, because you can't imagine all the ways in which it goes wrong. And so that gave birth to processes like red teaming, where you have humans come up with unexpected scenarios or automated tools that allow you to create these types of scenarios to poke holes at and inspect how these systems might break. And we do this in a lot of other fields. We do this in manufacturing. An airplane wing has to be stress tested tens of thousands of times in various different situations and elements before it's ever even certified to be tested on an actual airplane in action. So we're seeing the birth of these types of best practices. And because we don't have clear shared standards, which take time to build and agree on, we're seeing a lot of these unintended consequences happen.
Yeah, that really resonates with me a lot, Cal. There are a lot of complexities that go into building AI systems. And when some of these issues come up, even the people that are building them are still trying to figure it out and course correct. And I think you're right. I think that having regulations in place, and of course, we're seeing a lot of emerging regulations come about, that I think that slowly but surely we're going to figure out these processes and figure out a way to regulate AI in a responsible and an efficient way while also mitigating the risks and encouraging innovation at the same time.
My biggest hope is that AI gets as boring as accounting, and that we have a future state where AI auditing is a standard part of business. And hey, we're going to release this generative AI tool that's used in ABC situation. Maybe it's for the use of preparing patients for a conversation with their physician. And we have a very boring standard process and checklist that we run through and say, yep, now we can use this tool, and we're going to check it every so often to make sure it's still good, just like we do with cars, just like we do with any other boring piece of technology we use to get work.
Yes, I love this a lot. I think that the more boring that we're able to make AI, in a lot of ways, the more efficient and the more safe I think it could be as well. So I'm going to keep that in mind. That's a really good point that you made. Cal, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the show. And not only for taking the time, but I also really appreciate your work and your perspective when it comes to the development of AI. Of course, you're going to be doing and are already doing a lot of exciting things at Further as well. So I'm really glad that we were able to take time for this discussion. Before we head out, I'm just wondering if you could share with our listeners where they could find out more information about you and your work.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for having me here. I'm excited that we get to shine a light on what Further is doing and how we're approaching designing AI responsibly and helping clients with these types of strategies. So I'm personally very active on LinkedIn, as you know, and you can catch me at any conference grabbing a selfie with some of my favorite friends there. So please do reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn, and then check out some of our work at gofurther.com.
Awesome. Great. Well, I'll make sure to include the links to those resources in our show description. So all of our viewers out there definitely recommend scrolling down, checking all those resources out. Cal, thank you so much again for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Patrick.